why we aren't switching to WoW. And this is from players who I'm assuming were WoW players, went to Final Fantasy, and now they're coming back to, or staying with Final Fantasy. Um, for me, I'm really watching it just to kind of see what they're gonna say. I think that conversation is interesting for those who what's the word I'm looking for? Who did go to Final Fantasy 14?
Well, come back, Kyle.
What? Oh. Nice. It's good to be back.
In life or in Azeroth?
In life or in Azeroth? I mean, on the channel. I think he meant like back to the channel, which is I'm assuming what most people would assume when you ask that kind of question.
Where do we stand? We're both coming at this from the longest breaks we have both individually ever taken from the game that shall not be named, World of Warcraft.
Then you name it.
It's the Voldemort of MMOs at this point. For me, it really just comes down to Shadowlands was a
I think Jailer is the Voldemort of MMOs.
massive, massive disappointment. So over a year ago now, I unsubbed and I started playing Final Fantasy 14. I've never taken a break this long before. I've taken breaks before, but not like this. And Kyle, you haven't played since what? Early BFA?
2019 BFA spring would have been the last time I touched the game. I quit because of the story. Made no sense. Azerite armor. Warfronts. Island expeditions. Just pure, absolute burnout. I didn't even touch Shadowlands. This is well before any news came out about Blizzard. Just the game was bad. And it was riddled with systems. And the Azerite Earthblood story thing. And Sylvanas stealing a dead body from Jaina's brother or cousin or something. It made no sense. It wasn't going anywhere.
That part was cool. I like that part.
It's a badass idea, but you had to sit on it. And this isn't like sitting on Game of Thrones for a week, or maybe, heaven forbid, there's a holiday and Game of Thrones takes 2 weeks. This was months of waiting with a brother body in a cask. And it didn't go anywhere. None of it mattered. It sucked.
We're making this video because we're not quitting Final Fantasy 14 to go play World of Warcraft, but we are both interested. For me, I still love the Warcraft universe.
You don't have to quit a game to play another game. Even as a streamer, like you don't have to stream the new game. I mean, I guess for content, why not? But giving it a try, like, is that really gonna kill the other previous game? Your character doesn't get deleted if you play a day in WoW. And same vice versa. Your WoW character will not just disappear if you play Final Fantasy 14.
Universe. It is
It's always
still
been a
among
weird
my
argument.
favorite fictions out there. Kyle, you seem more curious from an investigative standpoint, but I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Oh, that's the truth of it. I've been on these videos comparing World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy, and frankly, my comparisons are extremely old, almost 4 years old. Very outdated information, as many people have informed me about when I talk about particularly healing in World of Warcraft. Now, I played a Disc Priest at that time, but still, I've been wrong about a lot of things. There's a lot going on with Dragonflight. There's a lot of promises being made, such as Third Era, saying this is a completely new vision for World of Warcraft.
Which
So
is
far, it's been true.
highly specific. That is from a really well done video that Preach just put out. It is not part of WoW's marketing push, unless you look at that Preach video as part of WoW's marketing push, which I think you could, but it's also distinctly
Separate.
not the script fest that like the Dragonflight reveal was.
No, and you can go watch our review of that particular announcement. That was bad. That was just bad. But they're focusing more on evergreen content. Coming from Final Fantasy now, evergreen content is amazing. We have loved our blind minimum.
Yeah, Final Fantasy does it right when it comes to that kind of content, to the point that I have no idea how WoW hasn't looked at it at any point in the last few years and be like, we should probably lean towards that. so that we're not wasting money on systems that just go away.
Eye level.
And I know they don't actually go away; they just evolve into something else. But some of the content, like if they just built upon it, would be amazing. Like the garrisons, like if that thing was still going, like obviously you'd have to have it where you can just access it pretty easily. Maybe give it its own Hearthstone. I think it has one, but make it where it's easier to like have a teleportation station there that just takes you right back to Ogrimmar or wherever you were, so that you can just go enter it and just jump right back out to where you were. But but yeah, like because I think that was actually some things about the garrison obviously were bad, but I do like that you could send out like NPCs on missions, NPCs that you met like through questing and stuff. It was pretty cool.
Extremes. We've loved going through the MSQ and playing it like it's brand new.
I don't.
What is evergreen content for World of Warcraft? It's certainly not their story. That thing's a mess. This is time walking, chromey.
You're not
weird.
even talking about the quality of the story. You're just talking about how it doesn't link together in game anymore.
How it's laid out.
If you time walk and you hit max level, it's just like that's it. Party's over. We're porting you away from what you're doing.
I've got my Drakthir ready for Dragonflight expansion day 1, and some Death Knights yelling at me to go to Shadowlands. Like it's
sir, that is Bolvar. That is not some Death Knight.
Convoluted.
That is
mess.
the Lich King.
No, it was the dude with just the helmet. It was just the helmet dude. The Ebon. Ebon dude.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It was very. I'm sorry. I was wrong.
And Bolvar may be the Lich King, but it's like no one really accepts him as it. Everyone, at least in my opinion, like most people, when you say the Lich King, you're thinking Arthas. You're not thinking Bolvar. Especially since he got owned by Sylvanas. It's like, not much of a king. But I think I see what he's talking about, especially if you're brand new 60 and you didn't go to Shadowlands. The Shadowlands quest does pop up, even though you're trying to get into the Dragon Isles.
Point is, things are different for us now. This is not our garden variety World of Warcraft break. You've been on breaks. I've been on breaks. We're both coming off of the longest breaks we've ever had.
Jeez, this camera may be too high quality, man. I can see like water in his eye.
We've both spent
our
time away from Azeroth with the first MMO to get its hooks into us the way WoW did.
I can't stop looking at it.
I am mad impressed with Final Fantasy XIV. I started getting really invested in its story and its characters at a time where I felt that World of Warcraft story was reaching an all-time low, and also like massively dropping the ball with one of my favorite characters ever.
Yeah, Sylvanas was a fan favorite for a ton of people, and they did her so bad. Like, how the hell? What is his name? I'm so glad that dude is no longer part of the company. It sounds like he was the main driving force behind most of the recent Sylvanas' actions. So I'm so glad he's out of the company. Obviously, with the freaking other crap he pulled there, allegedly. I don't know if they ever went to court yet with it, but this alone, what he did to Sylvanas, should have been enough to get him out.
They didn't stick the
ruin a
landing for me.
beloved character.
I think everything they did with Sylvanas was terrible. I'm simultaneously stoked to see Final Fantasy XIV's current endgame, but also a little sad that the end of the MSQ is starting to come into sight.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy is now like a part of my personality the way WoW is. And I haven't had that before. But before we move on,
personality,
we know you're subbed to this channel.
Being emotional?
No one would ever watch a video on YouTube without being subbed. That's just, that's insane.
That's villainy.
You would never do that. You're clearly subbed. But did you know that we have 2 other channels and a podcast? Go check out our Clips channel over
This
at
guy's putting out that grind.
Clips. We also have a Stream VOD channel. And Kyle, you and I are seasoned podcast veterans at this point.
It's true.
That podcast can be found wherever.
Well, I've been told I have a fake laugh. That was bad.
Live right here on this channel.
That
You
was
can
so
find the VODs
bad.
over on our VOD channel, and the podcast is available on all podcatchers. And for even more extra content, check out our Patreon by visiting supportourbromance.com. Thanks for supporting us in the Grinding Gear cinematic universe. This isn't a review of Dragonflight. The launch was a mess, and neither of us have even had a chance to get our dragons yet. I tried this morning, dude, and they shut the...
Ooh, I don't know if I want to keep watching this. Like, you haven't even gotten your dragons and you're gonna make this kind of video. That does not look. Man, I will keep watching. I may just end this one early because I don't know if I can even argue any points. Like, what's there to talk about? You didn't even get your freaking dragon. You get that so early on.
Server off on me.
Oh wow, I got to play a little last night.
Oh, did you get your dragon?
The Zeppelin appeared. The Zeppelin worked. You know, I arrived on the coast and there was the visage, not the spell the visage, but the view of the isle shrouded in mist, and it was pretty, and the sky was arted.
It was ashy. There was ash in the air. There was this trail of fire. It looks. I really like how well it looks.
It looks
I like
more
how it
dark,
but the point
like
of
in
this
that picture, than it actually
is
is.
to talk about what it's like dusting off World of Warcraft after feeling like we've been fully absorbed into Final Fantasy 14 for over a year now. You hit me up during your break, and you were like, "Hey, I want to dip my toe in the Dragonflight."
So I was playing Final Fantasy for a while. I did level up to the max. I finished the MSQ. In fact, I leveled almost every class to max level. I think I was missing just a few. But I don't know. Like, I'm just not. I'm an MMO player. Like, I play MMOs. I'll play a new one if it comes out. Of course, I played every one that has come out that I can think of. I can't think of one that I didn't at least try, other than Arcade 1, which I'm like kind of like regret a little, but at the same time, I think I was just too into WoW at that time. Maybe I don't know what I was doing at that time, but anyways, so it's like you can take breaks from MMOs. I don't think that's no. I think they're making too big of a deal out of something like that because it's like I would say if you're going to get serious into an MMO, then yeah, but at the same time, that's only if you can't take two MMOs seriously unless you don't have a job. Like them, like they don't really have a job. Their job is to play games, talk about it. So it's like, but if you have like a normal job, it's like obviously you're not really gonna have the time to have raid nights for two separate games. You know what I mean? But there's nothing stopping you from trying the other game, like just a level, just to try out the dungeons. Maybe the LFG, because LFG in Final Fantasy is not too bad. WoW's LFG, my experience has been pretty terrible. Like, man, people are so toxic. Like, it's crazy. Well, the LFG in Final Fantasy is just like actually pretty nice. So,
Because it appears I'm coming back on Dragonflight release day. I was like, ooh, okay, I gotta prepare. I gotta go into World of Warcraft like a classic car that's just been rotting away in a barn. I gotta open up my World of Warcraft garage and take the tarp off. In my case, of like 4 different characters, because I wasn't sure what I wanted to start with, and it ended up not mattering because I haven't gotten to play Dragonflight. But I did.
yeah, before the game or Dragonflight came out, I leveled all my characters to 60 just to have them ready. I like leveling alts. That's what I do in games. I did the same in Final Fantasy. I don't get too much into the end game until I level my alts.
Return to World of Warcraft post Dragonflight patch, which means
Like with WoW, I'm missing like maybe 6 characters to the max level, maybe 4, something like that.
And you have 2, which means we've seen all of the other new things. My first surprise, dude, was seeing that new UI. Because I was just sitting alone in my room. WoW was updated, and I was like, all right, let's log in. And I was being lazy. I didn't go update my add-ons, so I just turned them
Some
all
cool
off.
shoulders.
And I get in, and I was like, oh, hey, I know this from Final Fantasy.
Yeah, it's a very Final Fantasy look of things. Even has the grid if you want to turn it on. That's nice. So this is the kind of like quality of life stuff that hopefully they focus on when they're not making this modular expansion only content.
I love the new UI. I think it's fantastic. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like there's 2 types of people in the world. The type of people that get angry when games just take things from other games, and the kind of people that are like, oh, thank God, you're taking what works from your competition. I'm in the latter camp. I'm very happy about this. I'm like, thank goodness that's how it should.
I don't know anyone in that first camp. I have no idea what he's talking about, like 2 types of people. Most people, I would assume, don't even care. The only people who are going to care, that I would assume so, are the people you stole it from. You know what I mean? Like Guild Wars 2 players being mad that WoW stole the Griffin writing. But WoW players, I don't think anyone among the WoW players was like, wow, you shouldn't have stolen that from Guild Wars 2. I hate you now. So
should be. I love it in Final Fantasy for a reason, and I used to install add-ons World of Warcraft that let me do that for a reason, and now I don't need them.
If you like MMOs, you want an arms race here. You want both to be competing with each other. Now,
that's with any product. MMOs, general games like Dark Souls and stuff like that, or like the Dark Souls genre. You want games stealing from Dark Souls so that, you know, at least the good parts. I don't know any bad parts, but you know what I'm saying. Like it's across genres. It's not just MMOs.
each game is being made in the past. We're playing a 2-year-old game with Dragonflight, and when the next Final Fantasy expansion comes out, that would have been made after Endwalker. So the arms race is going to be messy. This isn't a, Shark Tale and Finding Nemo situation. This is happenstance. But hopefully they continue to
I don't
steal
know what
from
he's
each
talking
other,
about.
and we get altogether better game.
And then there's Drakthir. Kyle, there's Drakthir, which when they showed off this new race and class, they're just locked. If you want to be an evoker, you got to play a Drakthir. If you want to be a Drakthir, you have to play an evoker. That's it. That's your only option. I talked some good smack. Dude. I took one look.
It was pretty stupid, I think, at least, that they did that. And also, I really don't like that your armor that your Drakthir wears isn't really reflected on the normal gear you wear. Like, it should be like Worgens. I've already said it. Like, they could do it with Worgens. They could have done it with Drakthir.
Look at those wimpy noodle looking dragons with their rounded off bat wings. And I just started ripping into them. Like, these are the lamest looking dragon people I've ever seen.
The humanoid ones actually don't look bad, in my opinion. And in fact, if I could, I wouldn't even use my dragon form. I would just use my human form. It sucks that it changes you into the dragon form. Yeah, I really wish they did it like Worgens. I have no idea why they didn't use that same technology. It kind of blows my mind.
Why do they got human eyes? What type of furry fantasy is going on here? Which I realize they already have Worgen and cow people.
They're scalies.
Yes. I want gargoyles. Give me wing capes. You put them around your collar and you lock them, and they flow down the back when you're not using them. When they're out, make them more like concave rather than convex. I'm not doing another. I'm not opening Photoshop. I'm not doing an art lecture.
He's also doing he's talking about like demon wings, but dragon wings, at least in WoW, aren't like that I can recall.
Here, it's not happening. Not this time. That would be its own video.
But you have preferences, clearly.
Yes,
I mean, they're more lizard folk than dragons.
Yes, and then a couple things happened. One, we got the animatics. I forget what they're called for this one, and I haven't watched them all because I'm not that interested in Dragonflight's story. But I watched the first one just to see what was going on. Nozdormu shows up, and he's talking to a Drakthir, and they're hanging out, being buddy. Pretty sure Nozdormu's evil already, by the way. I think that's going to be the twist of this expansion. The art of the Drakthir in that, the way they paint the Drakthir, it's kind of how I want them to look, a little more monstrous.
Nozdormu has already been foretold that he's going to turn evil. Like, everyone knows that. That's his whole thing. That's their enemies of the green dragonflight. Is it green? Bronze dragonflight. Is that Nozdormu eventually falls to the other, like, a bad side, to where he's trying to change the timeline. What are they called? The Eternal Dragonflight? Black Dragonflight? No. I forget the name of them, but that's been around for so long, so I don't know what he means. Like, oh, it's gonna be the twist?
Just a little more.
I guess it's like I mean, it makes sense as this is the dragon expansion. So anything with dragons is probably going to be actually happening, including Nozdormu's fall.
Or like lizardy, like you came across a velociraptor in the Jurassic Park jungle and you're a little scared. That's what I wanted. That happened, and it kind of like injected that seed into my brain that I can then, my imagination can take over when I go and play the game. The other thing that happened was I just had a quiet afternoon during the Thanksgiving break. I was just kind of like, what should I do with my time? I went and fired up a Drakthir. I got to eat my hat. They're cool.
But you don't have to eat the whole hat.
I'm not going to eat the wing hat. They still have lame ass wings when they're running around.
They also look like wimpy. They got like noodle arms. Like the Dracthyr you see during the questing when you make one, like especially like the warrior ones, they look so much better.
Like it already looks like a cosplayer built those wings. I'm eating almost the whole hat. I think they're pretty rad.
I think it's more like most RPG situations where, from the outside, BioWare games, RPGs, you're making your custom character, they're gonna look bad. But you get in there and you start finding the options that you personally like, and you elevate that bad somewhat to your own personal preference. And there's just a surprising amount of customization, plus the visage, the human
Yeah.
form you have to customize.
You're describing Bethesda games for me. I'm like, my character's going to look busted no matter what.
I think custom male shepherd never looked good, no matter how hard you tried.
I did play the default male shepherd.
Yeah, you did. Right, that's what you did.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
But you were able to find the options that worked for you and walk away being like, oh, well, all right, that's kind of cool looking. For me, the big, like, this isn't Final Fantasy moment anymore for me was I was killing things in the first 2 minutes, and everyone was asking me to kill things.
Hopefully it's under attack. I could use a good fight.
I went in reading all the text. Like, I even made a Dracthyr because I was watching those promotional videos. Alex Straza standing up on the rock talking about something, the evasion, the danger of the head, and Khadgar's there. I didn't care about the plight of thousands of year-old dragons. I don't care about Khadgar telling the mortal races to unite once again. I figured playing a Dracthyr would actually insert me into the story that they're working on. And it did. It kind of introduced me to a dragon-y world, and I killed a lot of things. And I read every bit of text. Like, I was reading it like it was MSQ, and that definitely trailed off pretty quickly because it didn't really matter.
Oh no, yeah, no, I skimmed. I definitely skimmed. It's I've never been that way about World of Warcraft. And in more recent expansions, if it's particularly important, they're gonna have the dialogue box that pops up, and you're gonna have the talking head, and it'll be voice acted.
There's times where it breaks through, like Dragonblight, Wrath of Lich King, like certain Legion quests where you're hanging out with Pooh Bear. Like, there are times when the quests you go, oh my god, this is good. I need to read all this. I'm gonna absorb this whole zone. It's rare.
I think it's
Legion.
a healthy way to go about it.
Whatever it's called.
Don't force yourself.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think most WoW players skip story or the quests. I guess they don't really read the quest logs. But it's also true, like anything that's voice acted, at least to me, is usually worth listening to. Usually. Not always, but usually. Especially the cinematics, though. Those are almost always worth it.
I experienced that in Final Fantasy 14 quite recently in Shadowbringers. There's some of those zones are fetch questy, and
yeah, I do the same with Final Fantasy 14. Like usually, if the characters aren't actually speaking, like with audio, and even then, sometimes I'll skip it if it's boring to me.
If I wasn't streaming it, I would skim. I would skim and move on until I feel the weight of the story crushing down upon my shoulders again.
The other part that I thought was kind of shocking was I spent 3 years listening to World of Warcraft people complain about how Final Fantasy cutscenes and
that texture looks awful. Just saying.
Mini cinematics inside the game are very emote heavy and stiff. Come on. This is the modern version of the game, and the flapping of these draconic lips is the best we can do. Both are jank. Both have their jank moments.
100%. I think there's just more of it in Final Fantasy, especially in early Realm Reborn. There's a lot of those where you're just kind of watching people move their arms around. But there's also, in Final Fantasy's defense, a lot more like great, more involved in-game cinematics. World of Warcraft, it's still pretty rare. When they do them, they're great. Those in-game cinematics going all the way back to Wrathgate, that team, whoever's still around, a lot of people have come and gone. I think of Taron Gregory, because he's
exactly, like those are almost always worth watching.
this guy out there doing the press junket usually. I love those in-game cinematics, and I think they still look freaking fantastic.
They look way better now. He's gonna be so like shocked with how good Dragonflight's new cinematics are working.
I don't like the film grain they do. I wish they kept it more in-engine looking. And of course, my character's never going to appear in those, which is a disappointment.
That's how it works, sadly.
That's how WoW works, right? You are not the main character.
It is
You don't
pre-rendered.
get the killing blow. I do think I'm going to be a better MMO player, though, having played multiple MMOs, because I immediately started setting up my bars like they are in Final Fantasy, particularly using shift commands for my AoE attacks.
Oh, aren't they great? Aren't they? I think.
Yeah, I really, really like that. I never did that before. And I got really into talent points. I'm a big fan of deck builders. I never net deck. I think net decking is a sin and you skip half the game that way. Yeah, maybe you want to play tonight. I don't have to play tonight. I just want to make decks. And so I really, really like the talent point system being back. And I was surprised that there were points for both trees. Like
A lot of people
really
like
got
them.
invested
They're
in there. I was
really good.
crunching on my target dummy, really exploring that stuff.
I'm the complete opposite. I have no interest in trial and erroring my talents, and I can't stand deck builders outside of like limited magic.
You just download it from Icy Veins or something.
But yeah, that's never been a thing for me, and I love that I can just import talent builds now.
It is not. Yeah, importing is an important feature.
The fact that it caters to both is the great part about it, at least to me.
Yeah, it's something I use all the time in Hearthstone, and here it is in World of Warcraft. Works for me. Big fan. The other thing too is like Final Fantasy hasn't helped. There's no talents to worry about. A job is a job is a job. My Dragoon is like your Dragoon. My Dark Knight is like your Dark Knight. Your Astrologian.
Which it makes it easier to balance, that's for sure. So, I mean, there's pros and cons to both.
Isn't like my Astrologian because that job scares me.
Yeah. Oh man, Final Fantasy should steal the import UI. If you could copy a code and just put that in rather than doing that like upload save thing, and then you could be like, hey, here's my UI and share it around. That'd be a good advancement.
That's pretty cool.
I do not miss talent points
that would
in
be
Final
pretty
Fantasy at all because I have access to every job. And so when I want to explore and feel different, creative, do a dungeon in a different way, I just completely change my job class. And that's the interesting thing I've done for the evening.
Yeah, they make ults in Final Fantasy probably the best of any game. Like, I kind of wish they, really Final Fantasy, what it's missing is the transmog system. Like, I don't know what they have to do to make that change, but it would be worth it.
That's more than enough. Last thing I want is talent points on top of having all those jobs available to me.
I'm totally fine never having talent.
Because I'd still be playing Final Fantasy if the transmog system was better, just because I like hunting down the different sets. But after finding out, like, working with the system a bit, I'm just like, this is so garbage. Like, what the hell? Especially if you come from WoW's transmog system, it's just, man, I don't know how anyone does it.
Points in Final Fantasy 14, and I'm totally fine not worrying about them in World of Warcraft. But hey, I'm glad they're there for you to tinker with. I'll just stand in the corner going, why, he could be playing right now.
I'm a dungeon master. I plan for 12 hours and then I play for 3. It's what I do. And I love it. I absolutely love it. But in that way, the fundamental difference between Final Fantasy and World of Warcraft came to light. World of Warcraft, to me, is an action MMORPG. And Final Fantasy.
He hasn't really played actual action MMORPGs, if he's saying that, like Terra and stuff like that.
Is an MMORPG, perhaps drama. There's still action. It's just, for the most part, a lot of it is optional. You're going to have a trial here and there, but you don't have to pursue blind minimum eye level, Thordan.
There's
or
a
anything
lot
like that.
There's a lot more RPG in Final Fantasy 14 versus WoW.
And you're
a lot more RPG. I don't know if I would fully agree with that. I would say the story's better in Final Fantasy, but it's not like it's more, it's just a higher quality.
Invest in your character in that way. Like, your Warrior of Light is your character. Whereas World of Warcraft, I needed to be a Drakthir to even care about the story going on. And the next expansion or another storyline, I would make something completely different. I'm not a main anymore. I play this like Diablo, where based on what I'm seeing, I will be a certain class and character.
throughout all of WoW, I've ebbed and flowed between caring about the story and not giving a rat's ass because I just want to play the game. I'm just there for the gameplay. Obviously, the most I've ever cared is Wrath of the Lich King, and then kind of ebbed and flowed through there. Cataclysm, I didn't give a damn. Warlords of Draenor, literally the least I've ever cared about any game story. And then Legion was awesome, and I was super invested again. And I was like,
Yeah, it's like whatever's cool. Like Legion, Wrath of the Lich King, Shadowlands could have been freaking amazing if they actually used characters that mattered. Um, versus like this weird Game of Thrones thing they were doing, and Jailer being the jailer. So it's like when they first talked about Shadowlands, I actually wanted to play it. So I'm like, oh, that's cool. You're gonna run into like Arthas, you're gonna run into Uther, you're gonna see like more of their story. Just remembering like characters that died, like Bane, I think, the Tauren chieftain, his dad, like maybe Thrall running into him, and then Bane like, you abandoned my people or something like that. Like I don't know, like I was really hoping they would go into the characters from like Warcraft's past.
ooh, where are we going with this? Where are we taking Sylvanas? And then it fell off a cliff. In Final Fantasy 14, I haven't stopped being invested. There's little moments, like I mentioned Fetch Quest, where I'm just like, I don't need to know about the capybara people that live in the.
I know it's not going to sound good, but Final Fantasy 14, like I wasn't really interested in their some expansions. Like I'll be honest, the Samurai expansion was a bit boring to me. Like I didn't really care too much because it's like a normal invasion. Not care is not the right word, but it's like I wasn't like impressed or anything like that. It was just normal.
The cave, but it's fine. But it's
Like I know a lot of people like Xenos. I think Xenos is one of the most boring characters I've seen. His plot is I like fighting tough opponents. Full stop.
soon as if you're not into that, it doesn't matter. You're gonna be back to like the main arc very shortly after that. You're gonna be reinvested. At least that's been my experience with it. And so it's like, thank you, Dexter. Whatever the case, whether I was in the WoW or not in the WoW, that ebb and flow. Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop this video here because I'm just like, these guys haven't really played Dragonflight, so it's almost moot on why they're talking about it and why they aren't really interested in playing WoW. Like you're still into Final Fantasy, you're still in that honeymoon phase, or not, maybe not honeymoon, but it's like you're very invested into it. It's like back when probably they played WoW while it was good, like Wrath of the Lich King. Why would you not play other games? Is because you're into what Wrath of the Lich King.